High-level conversations taking place right now at the White House about a response to Syria. We're going to learn very soon whether the United States military will be conducting some sort of strike on that country. And, of course, we'll bring it to you the second we hear. Many people believe that is likely to happen. It is also almost universally assumed in the United States that that attack can take place with minimal risk. But is that true? Are there possible hazards to a serious strike? Douglas McGregor is a retired Army colonel. He's author of the book Margin of Victory, and he joins us tonight. Colonel, thanks very much for coming on. So assuming this does happen,
right,
and again, many people believe it will, what are the risks?
Well, it depends on the option that he selects. I mean, obviously, I'm one of those people that voted for Trump, the nationalist,
yes,
who believed that America first meant avoiding conflict and building prosperity at home. The best option is nothing at all. He seems to be in the grip of the globalists, you know, the global nannies that want to run around in Madeleine Albright's world and punish evildoers for reasons that don't make any sense to me, since we have no real interest in Syria, and the war there is effectively over. But I think he's looking at three possibilities right now. One is nothing, which is probably not going to happen. Two is another cosmetic strike, like the one last year.
Yes.
You'll recall that last year we fired 60-some cruise missiles. They landed in the dirt, exploded nicely. Everyone congratulated themselves, and we walked away, and nothing happened. The third option is a serious air and sea-based assault with missiles, aircraft, against a number of very sensitive targets where potentially we could end up killing Russians, Iranians, as well as Syrian government forces and potentially civilians.
It sounds like, from facts that have been reported, the likelihood of killing foreign nationals, Russians specifically, in Syria in a widespread strike is very high. So what would be the consequences if that were to happen?
Well, assuming he doesn't call the Russians and tell them what he's going to hit, which is what he did the last time.
Right.
I think that we'll probably lose potentially some aircraft. We could lose some ships at sea, because the Russians have made it very clear that if they are attacked, they will respond. And they have the capability to do that. And they can respond from Russia. Russia is less than 500 miles away from Syria. We forget that sort of thing. So they have missiles and capabilities, precision-guided strike weapons that can reach our ships at sea. They also have submarines operating in the area, as we do. So the potential for a real collision on the conventional level is very high.
So I think most Americans watching this, whether they supported the idea of the strike, if indeed it happens, want there to be an upside for the United States.
The only upside that I can see is non-intervention, because we don't have anything at stake. If we get involved and we do something along the lines of the third option that I described, and we lose people, Americans are going to say, what? What happened? Why? What's the rationale for this? Remember, Trump used to say over and over and over again, what's in it for us? And he pointed to the last 15 years and said trillions and trillions of dollars lost, nothing achieved. What are we trying to achieve? What's the end state that we're looking for? If all we're doing is expressing our righteous indignation at the alleged use of a chemical weapon, we're kidding ourselves. There are no good guys on the ground in Syria. Any number of people could have done this.
So who are the figures in the president's orbit encouraging this?
Who isn't? I mean, this is the question that, you know, we raise routinely. Again, it's back to the globalist versus the nationalist. He seems to have lots of globalists around him. I'm sure John Bolton is excited at the prospect of bombing somebody somewhere. I suspect that he's being supported in the Pentagon as well. Who's going to push back against this? I don't know. I've never seen any evidence for serious pushback, someone who says absolutely not. So the president seems to be on his own, if he's still the nationalist that he said he was.
Clarify, if you would. I mean, you make, I think, a pretty strong case for not doing this. What would be the case? What is the case being made to the president for doing this?
Well, I think he's being told that he has no choice, which is absolutely wrong. He's the president of the United States. He does not have to intervene under any circumstances. But the globalists are saying, well, it's a matter of global leadership. You have to be seen as being on the moral high ground. Remember, hypocrisy is the tribute that vice pays to virtue. We have a lot of hypocrisy in this town about what is right and what is wrong and what is moral and what is not. And I think he's going to be presented with this specious moral argument. There's nothing moral about coming into a war where 250,000 people have already been killed.
You've been around this sort of thing your whole life,
yes.
Many decades. Are you surprised by the support that this decision is getting from the left, from liberals on other channels?
No, not at all, because I think the left-right dichotomy is very misleading in this town. I think you have nationalists and you have globalists. The globalists dramatically outnumber those of us who are preeminently concerned about what's in the interest of the United States. They're living in Madeleine Albright's world. And the president is in danger of joining the likes of LBJ and George W. Bush, failed presidents, failed administrations involved in failed wars, by listening to these people. He should not act. If he doesn't act, then he can feel quite comfortable, because he's in the company of George Washington, John Adams, and the men who said, we don't want to be part of other people's wars.
Colonel McGregor, thank you for that. We'll be monitoring the White House all night for any news on Syria, obviously. Hillary Clinton, meanwhile,